so that was the rendition of Lift Every Voice and Sing, delivered by the Florida Memorial University's Ambassador Chorale. The next voice you will hear this evening is of the Asalh, South Florida chapter's president, Charlene Farrington.
God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, I thank you for this opportunity to once again walk in the shadow of greatness. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this, our 149th anniversary of the birth of Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Woodson was one of the first academics to study and share widely African American history, and it is on his shoulders that we stand. The Asalh, South Florida branch, established in 2016, endeavors to bridge the gap between the academic and the community. We are a collection of historians, of nonprofit workers, and of community members who are interested in knowing and sharing Black history, particularly that of South Florida. And we invite you to join us. My name is Charlene Farrington. I am the president of the Asalh South Florida branch, and I welcome you to this celebration of the life and the legacy of Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Thank you.
Carter G. Woodson, the man we're honoring today, was an educator, a historian, and a publisher who arguably founded the whole genre of African American history according to West Virginia State University. But who was he? Woodson was born the child of enslaved parents in 1875 in Virginia. His parents were noted as poor and more than likely forcibly illiterate. However, Woodson's father valued education and taught him to be polite to everybody, but to insist always on recognition and respect from all, white or Black. From witnessing his legacy, we see he heeded those words. Future Dr. Woodson left the family farm in 1892 and joined his older brothers in West Virginia. In his late teens, he worked in two of the booming Gilded Age industries in the Upper South, the railroad industry and the coal mining industry. Largely self-taught, Woodson would at the age of 20 attend Frederick Douglass High School, the Huntington, West Virginia's only Black high school, and where he would earn his diploma within 2 years. In 1897, he enrolled at Integrated Brea College in Kentucky, but initially only completed 1/4. He would transfer to the University of Chicago and collected enough credits to get his bachelor's degree in literature from Brea in 1903. During this time, Woodson studied history on a formal basis. We can see one of his inspirations for his work could have been planted while a coal miner in West Virginia with one man, a Civil War veteran and co-worker Oliver Jones. According to the West Virginia State University website, Jones, after learning that Woodson was literate, hired him to read the daily newspapers to the miners in return for treats. Woodson described Jones's home as all but a reading room with volumes that described Black history. He would later write that he developed a deep and intense interest in penetrating the past of his people here. We also see his inspiration for educating future generations while in Virginia and in the Philippines. After earning his bachelor's degree, Woodson taught Black coal miners' children in primary school for 3 years in Virginia, and then he signed up between 1903 and 1907 to teach in the Philippines, while also serving as supervisor of schools and teacher training. After a 6-month world tour, when we head into the turn to the 20th century, Woodson returned to the United States to attend graduate school. He obtained his master's degree in history at the University of Chicago, where he wrote his thesis on 18th century French diplomatic policy. He enrolled at Harvard University in 1907, and although he worked hard, his dissertation wasn't accepted until 1912. With Frederick Jackson Turner's celebrated frontier thesis in vogue, his professors had little interest in Black history. Woodson would later write that he was upset at their attitude of skepticism that African Americans had made any contribution to American history beyond their enslavement. After his experience as a graduate student, Woodson would write that his education at the university was a good example of the miseducation of the Negro, where he encountered traducers of the race, but he did learn bibliographic and research skills and further developed his views on American history. And he was the second African American to receive a doctorate at Harvard University, right behind W.E.B. Du Bois, as well as the only American born of slave parents to earn the degree. Just before his dissertation was accepted, and probably to make some money, Woodson relocated to Washington, D.C., where he would teach in the segregated Black schools, teaching subjects like French, English, Spanish, and American history to students attending the M Street School, for example, now known as Paul Laurence Dunbar Senior High School. Moreover, it was during this time that Woodson published his first of Black education and founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History in 1915. From the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, he founded the Journal of Negro History, which published its first number in January of 1916. As we know from our appearance here today, both the association and the journal remain active, just under new iterations of both names. In 1922, Woodson purchased a 3-story row house at 1538 9th Street in the nation's capital. He would use the 2 lower floors for research and activities for the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, while he lived on the 3rd floor. Thus, Woodson entered a new phase in his life, devoting the remainder of his life raising money and building up the association, editing the journal, and writing other publications, as well as the new publication he founded in 1937 called the Negro History Bulletin, as well as giving public lectures. He would devote the rest of his career to ensuring that the truth about African American history be told. Langston Hughes's poem, The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain, partly expresses this new phase of Woodson's life. We younger Negro artists intend to express our individual dark-skinned selves without fear or shame. If white people are pleased, we are glad. If they are not, it doesn't matter. We know we are beautiful and ugly too. If colored people are pleased, we are glad. If they are not, their displeasure doesn't matter either. We will build our temples for tomorrow strong as we know how, and we will stand on top of the mountain free within ourselves. Woodson, with the use of primary source documents like speeches, autobiographies, and folklore, wrote and published 19 books. The titles include A Century of the Negro Migration, The Education of the Negro Prior to 1861, The History of the Negro Church, The Miseducation of the Negro, and The Negro in Our History. He also published a number of articles, founded the first scholarly journal dedicated to African American history, but he also started Negro History Week, which eventually became our current Black History Month, with Woodson earning the moniker Father of Black History and Black History Month. It was through the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, Woodson launched the annual celebration of Negro History Week in 1926, during the height of the Harlem Renaissance era, an era known for progressive reform, and demonstrated in various ways the new Negro's insistence on using their own voices to define themselves, like the previous quote from Hughes's poetry describes. Fellow historians and Harvard alums W.E.B. Du Bois and Rayford Logan were very impressed with his efforts. Du Bois considered it one of the greatest accomplishments to come out of the 1920s. The week-long celebration was expanded into Black History Month in 1976 by President Gerald Ford, who used a bicentennial address to urge Americans to seize the opportunity to honor the often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. Woodson also worked closely with some powerful women during this time of the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. Mary Church Terrell and Mary McLeod Bethune, two of which you see here in the presentation, were educators and activists who were powerfully connected women in Washington, D.C., especially through their work with the National Association of Colored Women and the National Council of Negro Women, respectively. Mary Church Terrell was described as having a lifelong commitment to disseminating Black history. She was an admirer and colleague of Frederick Douglass and felt him deserving of recognition and thus created Douglass Day, a day dedicated to the global achievements of Black people and to dispel myths of Black inferiority. She worked with Dr. Woodson, as we see in the images, to share Black history in local communities um, in DC, like those in the DC area. Mary McLeod Bethune became the first female president of the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History in 1936 and worked with him in creating the Negro History Bulletin. The goal of the bulletin, according to her, was to provide something that would be easily accessible and that would call on everyday people, especially teachers and young students. The South Florida branch of Asalh, or the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, honors Dr. Carter G. Woodson today and dedicates itself to his call to action, as he stated in his most famous work, The Miseducation of the Negro. Problems of great importance cannot be worked out in a day. Questions of great moment must be met with far-reaching plans. The so-called modern education, with all its defects, however, does others so much more good than it does the Negro because it has been worked out in conformity to the needs of those who have been enslaved and oppressed weaker peoples. For example, the philosophy and ethics resulting from our educational system have justified slavery, peonage, segregation, and lynching. Negroes daily educated in the tenets of such a religion of the strong have accepted the status of the weak as divinely ordained. The problem of holding the Negro down, therefore, is easily solved. When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him back to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there's no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. The same educational process which inspires and stimulates some with the thought that he is everything and has accomplished everything worldwide depresses and crushes at the same time the spark of genius in the Negro by making him feel his race does not amount to much and never will measure up to the standards of other peoples. So it is the dedication, as President Barrington mentioned, for the South Florida branch of Asalh and for all of the branches of Asalh to reverse the impact of the negativity that was thought about with the story of blacks, and we follow Carter G. Woodson's model to move forward into throughout the 21st century. So our first speaker is Mr. Joseph Metz. Mr. Joseph Metz has dedicated over 25 years to higher education and to Broward College. Beyond his official roles, he has advised numerous student organizations, including the African Student Union, the Minority and Male Initiative Student Club Greatness in the Making, the Caribbean Student Association, and the Student Government Association. He is also an active member of the Zeta Chi chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Additionally, Mr. Metz has volunteered with the Urban League of Broward County's Young Professionals Network, the Coding in Academics program, a joint project with the Crockett Foundation, Deerfield Beach Middle School, and Broward College, the Men to Boys Mentoring Group, the board of directors of Piney Grove Boys Academy, and many other tutoring and mentoring initiatives. So without any further ado, I pass the floor over to Dean Metz.
Good evening and thank you. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you all today. Uh, I bring you greetings from the Zeta Chi chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It is with great pleasure and an immense sense of pride to join you all today to talk about one of the most influential men of Omega Psi Phi, Brother Dr. Carter G. Woodson. As a member of Omega Psi Phi, all of its members are expected to embody and live by its cardinal principles. And Brother Woodson definitely exemplified that throughout his career. The first cardinal principle is manhood, meaning showing himself to be a man, characteristics like strength and courage. During the times that Brother Woodson was working to fight for the rights of Negroes, as they were referred to as at the time, it took a lot of strength and courage in the face of much adversity. The second cardinal principle, scholarship, is one of the things he excelled at, as evidenced by the many books that we saw in the presentation, and he published one of my personal favorites, The Miseducation of the Negro. The third cardinal principle, perseverance, which means to press on despite challenges. As we can all imagine, there was a lot of opposition to Brother Woodson's endeavors during the time period that he was able to persevere and overcome all of those obstacles that were placed in his path. And concluding with the last cardinal principle, uplift, which means to improve and raise the level of the community. This was something he dedicated his life to by working to raise the level of the Negro and delivered a stirring speech called Democracy and the Man Far Down, during which he implored Black people to study Black life and history. As a result, his fraternity brothers took the challenge and devoted a week every year to study Black history and literature, which ultimately resulted in the annual celebration that we all have come to know as Black History Month. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean Metz, for those remarks and bringing and delivering them from um, your fraternity. So next, we'll have our guest speaker for today, Marie Radigan. Marie Radigan is a social justice advocate, organizer, and aspiring civil rights lawyer, as well as an influencer. She was born in Miami-Dade County by way of Jamaica. Marie is the first generation scholar who obtained her bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism and a master of applied social science with a concentration in African American studies from Florida A&M University, as well as a master's in public administration from Florida State University. Recognized for using her wrongful arrest experience at 13 years old to inspire change, she prides herself on empowering the next generation of movers and shakers. She currently serves as the field organizer for the National Youth and College Division of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP. Ms. Radigan is also a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Good evening, family, friends, and community leaders. Thank you, Dr. King, for that amazing introduction. It feels good to be back home in my lovely city of Broward County. Today, we gather to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history. His work to preserve and uplift the contributions of Black people to this nation was not only revolutionary, but also a call to action, a call that remains just as urgent today. Dr. Woodson once said, "Those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history." He understood that knowing our history empowers us to claim our rightful place in society. But what happens when that history is erased or distorted? What happens when legislation is passed to hide the truth? Here in Florida, we face a deliberate attack on our legacy, our identity, and our truth. But we've seen this before. Bans on books, restriction on teaching Black history, efforts to silence discussion on race, and the intentional diminishment of African American voting power by eliminating congressional districts are not just political tactics. They are attempts to take us back to a time when our ancestors' voice were stolen and their stories were erased. But we've been here before. From the days of Reconstruction, when newly freed Black citizens faced violent backlash for daring to participate in democracy, to the lynching, bombing, and burning of innocent people in Rosewood, Florida. Yet, through every trial, we have always fought back. The legacy of resistance is strong in Florida. From John Horse and the Black Seminoles to the bravery of Harry T. Moore in the face of white supremacy, who laid the field work of how to be an organizer before the civil rights movement by registering 31% of eligible Black voters, adding 116,000 members over 6 years to the Florida Democratic Party, to the wade-in demonstrations at pools and beaches in St. Augustine, Florida, to the riot in Overtown in 1979 after the brutal beating and killing of Arthur McDuffie, to the walkouts and rallies following the tragic killing of Trayvon Martin, to the countless foot soldiers who marched, protested, and stood firm against oppression. We carry their spirit as we push against these modern day attempts to strip away our rights and our history. We stand on the shoulders of giants like Dr. Woodson, who dedicated his life to ensuring that we would not be forgotten. So, as we honor his legacy, let us recommit ourselves to the labor of love, resistance, and joy. Let us fight back against those who seek to erase us. Let us continue building awareness of the importance of Black history. Because, as Dr. Woodson reminded us, if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. We refuse to have our thinking controlled. We refuse to let our history be silenced. And we refuse to let Inauguration Day make us feel hopeless, because in the good words of Kendrick Lamar, we got loyalty and royalty inside our DNA. We got quarter peace, got war and peace inside our DNA. And we got power, poison, pain, and joy inside our DNA. And with that being said, I'll pass it back over to you, Dr. King.
Thank you so much, Marie, for those inspirational words, and for the reminder again about the importance of not only the man but the call to action that he gave us over in the 20th century. So we're going to wrap up our short, but I think very impactful celebration of the 149th birthday of Dr. Carter G. Woodson. So next, we would have our closing remarks from, again, President Farrington.
Very inspirational. All of the words we heard here tonight should serve to reignite that spark within us that refuses to be put in a corner, refuses to be dampened and ignored and trampled. I'm very inspired. A lot of thoughts are running through my mind right now. But before I get too far into them, let me thank all of our speakers this evening and to encourage each and every one of you who is listening to this broadcast to ensure that if you believe the words that you heard here this evening, then you need to be a member of an organization that is working to highlight the accomplishments of African Americans and preserve those accomplishments, and most importantly, share those accomplishments with others and with our youth. If you believe what you heard here this evening, make sure you are a member of an organization that is preserving this rich history that Dr. Carter G. Woodson encouraged us, implored us to make sure that we don't allow it to disappear. This is what breeds self-esteem in each and every one of our children, and it is critical that we get this information to them so that they can make the kinds of decisions in our future that we need to make to ensure that African Americans take their rightful place in America. I want to thank everyone here this evening for their inspirational words. I encourage you to visit us at asalhsouthflorida.com and consider becoming a member and joining us in this fight. Thank you.
So if you'd like to join the South Florida chapter of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History and follow the call to action that was shared by all of our speakers today, go ahead and scan this QR code and it will take you to our chapter's website, as well as provide you with the information on how you can join us either during our general meetings, during our future events, or actually join our organization. But other than that, we'd like to thank you again for being part of this year's celebration of the life and work of Carter G. Woodson, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Again, my name is Keisha King. I'm the secretary for the South Florida chapter of the Study of African American Life and History. And I would like to wish you a good evening and wish you a great remainder of 2024. Take care.